Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 93. I'm Adam.
I'm Brian.
I'm Travis. And as usual, before we get to our game of the week this week, we want to invite you over to our website, meeplesonmeeples.com, as well as our YouTube channel where you can see all of our videos and subscribe and follow along, as well as Facebook and Twitter where you can keep up to date with our activity and what games we've been playing.
This week's game of the week is Downforce by Restoration Games. The board is double-sided, so you'll choose which racetrack you're going to use. You'll set up the cars randomly, and then the first thing you do is auctioning off the cars. You shuffle these up, you flip up, okay, black is up for auction. You take the special ability cards, you shuffle them up, and whoever wins this option will get determined. On any player's turn, if your car moved into only rectangular spaces, you may move it 2 additional spaces. So, every player looks at that, and then they look at the hand that they have. You have dealt out the entire deck to the players, and you'll be looking at your cards here. And you will bid. If I want the black card, I have to lay down a card from my hand that has a black car on it, and the number next to it is how much I'm bidding. So I'm bidding 6 million to buy black here. Everybody else will do the same. You'll secretly pick. You'll reveal at the same time. Whoever bid the most wins. In case of a tie, the player who has the most cars on the card would win. So if somebody else bid a 6 and they had 4 cars on the card, they would win it for 6 million. And they would take both of these, and then the next car would be flipped up, the orange car, and then the next ability would come out, and this person would get unpredictable. Everybody has to own at least 1 car, so you make sure that you do that properly. And then when you're done, if you have multiple special powers, you only choose one that you want to use in the game. You don't get to use all of them. So if I had won both these, I'd have to decide, do I want unpredictable or determined? In this particular setup, since yellow was on the first place spot, they're the ones who get to play first. So they'll choose a card from their hand, and they will play it. So they would probably want to go, maybe they play this. When you play a card, you have to move the cars on the card in the order they appeared, the number of spots they have. So if I was yellow, I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then blue would move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wild, I get to choose any car that is not already listed. So I can't move yellow, blue, or orange. So for the wild, I'm going to make black be the wild for 1, 2. And then orange moves 1. Moving is very simple. You always have to move forward. So the space that you move into has to end further than the space you are currently in. For instance, the yellow here cannot slide over, blue cannot move here, blue can move straight forward, or it can move diagonally. If there's ever a point where the orange is in this situation, orange can move, you can cut between cars as part of your movement. So then this would get in the discard pile, and then the next player going to the left would choose. So if they play this card, black moves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Blue would 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Red moves 2, 1, 2. The person playing the card moves the cars, even if it's not their own car. Now there is a special ability that says the person who owns, if your car moves on somebody else's turn, you get to choose how it moves. But for the most part, the one playing the card moves all of the cars. Now this is important because it is possible to move something into a choke point. For instance, if I played a card that can move red 5, and I was not red, for instance, I don't want them to go that far, because let's say I own black and yellow or whatever from the auction phase, I can go 1, 2, oh, red is stuck, they can't finish their movement. So it is possible to move them in to a place where they can't complete their full movement. However, if the blue car was here, I have to move the full 5 if it is possible. So that's how you move the cars. You'll see the yellow lines on the board. These are important because once one car passes the yellow line, you finish resolving whatever was on that particular card. Say this is the black 5 and they move past that yellow line. Okay, after that card is finished, you stop and everybody looks at their little paper. What their paper does is it lets them place a bet. After moving past the first yellow line, everybody stops and they put a check on the card they think is going to win. So if I thought black was going to win, I'd put a little check in the box for bet 1 next to black. What that means is, at the end of the game, if black does happen to come in first, I'm going to get 9 million because I bet on them. If they come in second, in this column I bet, well, that at least I'll get 6 million. And if they come in third, I will get 3 million. You'll do that 3 times. The first time any car passes the second yellow line, you'll make another bet here. Let's say all these cars had moved and all of a sudden now black isn't in the lead anymore. Maybe I want to bet on yellow, so I can check by yellow in the second. And if I'm right, this time, first place, they'll get 6 million. If yellow comes in second and I bet on them, they'll get 4 million. And third, I'll get 2 million for making that bet. So it's possible to bet on different cars. If you bet poorly and they don't place in first, second, or third, you get $0 for that particular column. So at the end of the game, you'll see how well you bet on the first, second, and third round, because there's a third yellow line. You'll add up your placement of cars. If my car comes in first, I get 12 million. If a car I own comes in second at the end of the race, I get 9. Third is worth 6 million. Fourth place is 4. Fifth gets 2 million. Last place gets 0. So I'll add in my winnings with my bet winnings, and then subtract what I paid for the cars at the beginning of the game. Whoever has the most money wins. So let's start with our likes and dislikes. What do you think, guys?
I like the minis, I guess, for this game. The race cars, they're plastic. Obviously, they got, instead of being one color, I mean, they've got to cast them from the same color plastic. They've got different colors to them that makes them look like an actual car. I mean,
easy to tell apart on just simple glance.
I mean, they're pretty high quality. The board is kind of the same thing. So overall, the components, they're nice. Nothing fantastic. Cards are nice quality. I mean, components overall are good.
I like the fact that it comes with, the board is double-sided, so you have 2 very different racetracks with different amounts of choke points. When it goes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, which really can affect gameplay. So it's nice to have options in the box without having to buy expansions.
I really like just the cards in hand, having to, like, at a glance look at it and be like, okay, I feel, red's going to be really hot. For me personally, where you can kind of easily layer them out when you fan your hand, I think their layouts of the cards are really nice, and just the mechanism in general is very sleek, very intuitive. You kind of automatically know how things are going to go. You may not know how everybody else is going to play it, but at least you know you have a good plan for yourself.
It's a little better than, they could have done dice, but that throws a lot of chance into it. This is, you can have a little more strategy with the card layout. You can see, okay, I want red to move 6. I'm okay with blue moving 4. I need yellow to move 2. I mean, you get a little bit of control over how they move.
Yeah, I like the fact that they have almost completely eliminated randomness, because there's no dice. Like, you know exactly the number of spaces that are going to move and in what order. But there's also no randomness in drawing your cards from your deck. No, every card you were given at the beginning of the game, that is your hand throughout the game.
So you know it from the time you're bidding on cars and picking your car, through all the betting, everything.
You always know exactly what you have, and you have options to play all of those cards. You don't have to wait and hope you draw one you need, which, again, in a racing game, to not have randomness is an amazing thing.
Yeah, a lot more strategy to it. I like the board layout, too. I guess I didn't get to on components. It's got a spot for the discard. It's got spots for each of the winners in the race as you go down.
Some nice touches, they didn't have to include, like, the fountains, the little boats in the bay area.
Yeah, you got the little town with, signs on the buildings, trees. And
I like some of the nice little touches. I like how these buildings are part of the racetrack. It could have been, oh, here's the entirety of the racetrack. It's like, no, we want a choke point. Well, how do we make that make sense? We'll just put some isometric buildings on there, and it fills in the space. And it's just sand everywhere. So,
and it doesn't draw attention to itself. It just kind of looks nice.
Yeah. How about dislikes?
We've kind of talked about this. It doesn't suffer from runaway leader problem as much as most racing games, but once you get past that second, or especially the third betting point, it kind of starts to become clear who's probably going to win. There's a good chance you know who's going to win.
I think it even starts between the first and second. And that's a mechanism of the betting, I think. I don't know if that's necessarily it's kind of a dislike, but once you get a certain car that's out front, 4 or 5 spaces after the first betting point, most people are going to bet on him, and then from there on out, they're going to be playing their cards to give that guy a little bit of an edge.
Yep.
So it's a runaway leader, but it's or a runaway winner, but it's a runaway winner that everybody's invested in. So you have something, you have a little bit of skin in the game either way. Just because that car is going to win doesn't mean you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, and if you made that first bet, you're like, well, I could really stop this car from getting better, but if it's not going to put one of your cars in front, it's in your best interest just to let them keep getting ahead because you're still going to benefit by having your betting ticked off.
Yeah.
Which is true. Other dislikes. I mean, I honestly don't have a lot. You do have one?
I think we're thinking
some of the
same
power
thing.
cards.
Yeah.
Some of the power cards are unevenly distributed as far as how often you're going to see usefulness out of them. The one in particular I had in one of the games was aggressive, and it's if you have your name first or your cars first on the card, and you have other cars in line, you get one additional space. Sounds pretty great, but if you just have a random set of cards where you have one, it happens once per game. You got to plan it out.
That's
versus
true.
some of the powers that are happening every single turn.
And I think we talked about this a little before we started recording here, but I think out of the 6 powers out there, there's 3 of them that are, I think, really useful.
Yes.
And then you got 3 that are kind of like the one card where it's if there's a wild on it, you can use that wild for a color that's already on the card.
Yeah, that one you can double up.
It's a neat idea, but again, if you're dealt a hand where there's only that case once.
Yeah, I don't think it makes those 3 of the powers I do prefer over the other 3. There's 6 powers total because it's a 6-player game. But those other 3 are. It's kind of luck of the draw. Yeah. You could get a hand where those other 3 powers are better than the 3 powers I would normally prefer. One is if you have all 6 colors, you can choose to ignore one color on the card. And there are a lot of cards who have all 6. If you just happen to get dealt at the beginning of the game, like 5 cards that have all 6 colors, you're going to be able to use that ability 5 times in the game, and that doesn't happen often. So they're maybe not as good they might be better if you get a really good draw.
Yeah,
so
and it could be paired with a card you wanted. Like you have a hand full of red. Red comes up with a bad power. You want red because you want to be able to control red. Possibly.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe that's just a little bit more strategic thinking in the acquiring racing.
Yeah, the original
phase.
Bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that might the auction that might be part of it. It's
how important do you think? I think the auction personally is
and I think that's
really
maybe
important.
Get into strategy, which maybe
probably
Any other likes and dislikes on this though?
I like the artwork. If you look at the art really closely, you can kind of see the dot printing. Like it's almost like an old comic book style. If you look at it, it's very simple and plain. But the art style, because we talked about the component quality, but the art style I kind of like too. They didn't go super hyper realistic or anything. It just kind of fits nicely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Overall, though, I think we a good game. Just every game, some downsides.
a couple of things. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk strategy, which personally I think there's a lot of in this game.
Can I just jump in with what I was going to say? I almost said it in the last section, and I apologize. The very beginning of the game, you're dealt over your cards before the auction, and I think it is really important to look at your cards and say, wow, I have a black 6, black 6, black 5. I should probably be invested in black because I'm going to be able to progress that car a lot in this game. So right off the bat, I mean, before the game's even started, you got this meta game of who do I want to buy and how much should I buy them for.
And it's not even just looking at the 6s at top. A lot of times I'd arrange my cards in my hand so I could see all the 6s I had for each color, but I'd also keep track of because not every color is on every card. So I keep track of how many blues do I have. Okay, I got 8 blues in my hand. That's probably going to come in handy down the line to keep him moving forward.
And even if your color is lower towards the bottom, you can save that, wait for a good time where 3 out of those colors are stuck behind a pile up.
Yep.
And then you can go, okay, well, I'm only getting 2 out of this, but everyone else is getting 0.
I can still
Now's the time to use this. I've, eliminated them getting ahead by just waiting to play that card. So, I mean, even if it's not perfect for you in the beginning, you might find a spot for it.
Hand management is huge in this. And you have a very big hand, so it can be difficult to keep track of everything. But playing the right card at the right time, you can go from 4th place to 2nd, maybe even 1st with just the right...
Well, our last game, my racer went from being in last place to actually placing and finishing the race, which was pretty astounding. But even in that auction phase, and I think, Travis, you got into this a little bit, not only do you want to keep track of the racers you're bidding on, but it's those powers.
Yeah.
Some of the powers, that are like we've talked about are very powerful, and the one power, for instance, where you get to always control where your card goes, no matter whose turn it is. I think that power can make or break some races. I think, as far as controlling choke points and controlling backups and that kind of thing.
And that power, its availability also kind of changes depending on number of players. So if you only have 4 players, certain people have multiple cards. So if you have that power and you have 2 cards, you're getting a better benefit out of it because you get to maneuver out 2 cards, whereas in a 6-player game you're only getting 1 card. So then it's still great, but it becomes less great with the more player counts, whereas some of the other ones still are better overall. So a lot of the powers might, with different player counts, adjust how strong they are in the auction phase.
The betting, you can't not mention the betting. That is a big money maker. I mean, don't get me wrong. Placing first, second. If you have 2 cards and you get first and second, that's gonna win you the game almost guaranteed. Unless you bet horribly.
Because you bet on them, yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it's possible to not place, but just bet really well. And if somebody else screwed up their bets, you can come in first or at least second money wise. Because that's what matters.
If you auctioned low, like you bought low on your 1 car in a 4 or 5 or 6-player game, and then you bet. You get the first place guy on all 3 of your bets, that might make the difference because the person that actually owned those cars may have spent a boatload to get them, which gets deducted at the end.
Was that the first or second game we played tonight, where I ended up winning, but only because I only had 1 car, so I thought, oh man, Travis had 2,
I had 2,
you had 2, my son had 1, and I had 1, and I thought, well, I'm already at a disadvantage because I've only got 1 car that I'm really rooting for here, but I failed to take into account that Travis has spent $6 million for both his cars, and I only had to pay 5 times 1. So at the end of the game, he may have won more by placing and whatever, but then that minus $12 million was huge. So
and I lost by what, $2 million?
Yeah,
it was like nothing. I'm like, oh, I got this.
Close.
Oh, crud.
A strategy that I think is played out in every game I've played of this is
rush to the choke.
Getting to the choke points and controlling the choke points.
Yeah. And then stalling out.
Yeah. Because, if you can get one of your cars or the car you're betting at ahead of that choke point and then get another car in there to hold everybody else up, you can really control how that race is going to turn out.
Or you can use it to get somebody else's car if you're behind. But if you can choke it up, I don't know if it was this track, but at one point I had a car like way back here. But once this got choked up, cars got clogged behind, and I was able to come up, and so instead of being in like a far distance, I didn't stand a chance. I think I came in second, my car overall that game, because 1 choke point allowed me to catch up to everybody else, and then it was just good hand management after that.
Yeah, but those choke points are crucial to these.
Huge.
If you can get there and control them, they can make a big difference in the race. And that also goes to when you're moving the cars, where you place them on the track, because if you place them in a certain square, depending on how all the other cars are arranged, you might prevent everything behind them from moving forward, or you might prevent them from being able to move forward from there on out. So you can create a choke point on the map based on how you lay out the cars.
Getting 2 side by side here. There you go, new choke point.
And doing that also with the hand management strategy, where you can say, oh, orange is in the lead. I have a 6 orange, but right now, if I play this, it may not be great for me, but it's going to move orange ahead 1 instead of 6.
Or play a card that doesn't have orange, so everybody else behind them just wastes their turn.
Then you can either lock them in there or bleed off some of the winner's color out of your hand, which I thought was a really fun strategy to do, where you're just sitting there like, okay, at the end of the game, I don't want these in there because I'm just going to keep pushing the leader forward, and I'm not winning, so picking when to use certain cards that are of no value to you but high value to other players was
absolutely.
A really fun thing to do.
And the other thing I actually found...
And it was funnily frustrating to see somebody play like a 6, if I had black and they played a black 6, but I'm stuck here, so, I get to move 0. It's... you just kind of have fun with it. Thanks for screwing me over,
The other thing that you kind of got to keep track of is, especially in a 4, 5, or 6-player game, not all cars are necessarily going to get across the line.
Yes.
And you want to make sure for your cars that you have enough colors to keep them moving on the track. Because I got to a point...
I have run out of cards with my color before I got to
rely on somebody else at that point.
Yep.
And sometimes you're not going to be able to control that, but it's just a good idea to keep that in mind because you want to be able to keep your car moving along, obviously.
Anything else? Otherwise, I'd say it's as far as racers go, it's pretty strategic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Especially not having the element of randomness putting in there where it can kind of like screw your plan up. I mean, you can kind of have that a little bit where you can't necessarily pre-plan your entire turn because you have to wait and see how someone's going to arrange you or put you into an area.
Jockey for position.
Yeah. But then that goes back to having good hand management.
Yeah.
All right, next up is reviews. We'll review them 1 to 10, 0 being it was a terrible game, 5 being it was an okay game, we like playing it, it's not great, and 10 being best game of all time, amazing.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I would probably put this at probably a solid 7. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, there was a couple of bits that I said I wouldn't really enjoy all of it. You know, it was fun. I think it's okay because it moves quick enough where even if you're like, well, I got screwed on, you know, turn 1 and 2, the game's over in, 35, 40 minutes?
It says 30 to 45 on the box. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and even with 4 players, I mean, you're doing a couple of things each turn. You're not really wasting a lot of time. So I think for the time it takes, if you get screwed, oh well. I mean, if you break away and take it all, you know, you can just jump right into it. So I'd say a 7 is pretty solid for me.
If I had to guess, I'll probably be the high one on this review because I love cars in general. And just dawned on me while we were filming this, I'm wearing my Ford Mustang shirt. I love racing games, you know, Formula V, pitch car, high in my list of favorites. So I'm going to go with 8. It's really cool to see a racing game that doesn't have randomness. It's really nice to see a racing game where even though I'm behind, I'm still invested in the race because I can be betting on the correct car and I might still win. Even though I might technically come in last, if I've bet wisely and I didn't overpay for my cars at the beginning of the game, I might still actually win and have the most money at the end of the game. I think the ability to have those player powers that are totally different for each player is kind of cool and unique to this. So it just brings a lot to the table, and it does come with 2 racetracks right out of the box. I'm really hoping there are expansions. If not, it's not the end of the world, I guess. But great components, and I'm really glad that Restoration Games brought this game back from the dead. So solid 8.
It's like a solid 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to fall right in the middle of you guys. I'd give it a 7.5 for all the reasons you guys have talked about. I like it because there is so much strategy to it. Based on the hand management, the auctions at the beginning, the use of the powers, you know, how you position the race cars on the track, the betting, how that plays into it. And it's kind of a good and bad. I mean, the betting, like I said, sometimes I think ends up with a runaway winner. But again, like you said, you're still invested in it. If you bet right, you can still make a difference. So I like it for that reason. The only thing that brings it down for me is I agree with you. I like having the individual powers, but some of them, frankly, I think are kind of worthless. I don't think they're that great, and maybe it's just I haven't had the right hands. Maybe that's the problem.
I disagree. If you have the right hand, they can be very powerful. But again, that's the one time where randomness comes into this. What did I get dealt? But.
True. But I like everything about it. It's a solid game. The only other thing is I would like to see more than the 2 tracks. So like I said, I'd like to see them bring out
Fingers
more.
crossed. I would definitely buy. This is one game I would buy expansions for
because and maybe it's not that big a deal because the track really isn't the biggest part of the game. It's who you're playing with and their strategies. But having a few more options would be nice. Otherwise, though, it's a great game overall. I definitely recommend it, and something you should go out and get.
Well, there you have it. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.